In this video, I'm going to look at a game called For Evelyn 2 Shards of Creation, which is made by a solo developer. I think this game is really ambitious. It does a few of the things it's doing very, very, very well, and then it's quite weak on some others. Overall, I think this game suffers from fantasy storyteller-itis, which is a terrible disease of the brain, where people make a game mainly to tell a story about a fantastical world and the plots and the intrigue going on in it. And then they sort of neglect to make the player feel good by giving them interesting things to do. So that might sound a bit harsh, but see what you think. As always, leave feedback for the developer in the comments. Tell us what you think. Tell us what you'd like to see in this game. I found it really impressive in some ways and deeply disappointing in others, but you'll see what those are as we go through. Anything where it's an RPG, where it's like a solo developer, just always immediately starts ringing alarm bells, because I've seen games like this before, and the problem that I experience with them is like, you've tried to put too many things in your game and they're not all to a high standard, right? Making a big game generally results in a game of a lower quality because you've had less resources to put in each part of it.
In the heart of a small port town, a mystery unfolds. The arrival of the Shadow Serpent, a ship shrouded in secrecy, has sparked rumors and stirred the curiosity of many.
Yeah, if I wanted my ship to be inconspicuous, I probably wouldn't call it the Shadow Serpent. I'd probably call it something like the Jolly Fisherman.
The town guards, their loyalty bought with gold, turn a blind eye.
Oh dear. I would personally have characters that never had a voiceover rather than having bits of voiceover, because when you have bits of voiceover, it sort of tells you that this is how this character speaks, and then you've got that voice locked in your head, and you're taking the sort of interpretive agency away from the player to sort of decide what characters speak like, you know. The mood of this is great. Music and the lighting and all of the stuff that contributes to the mood, I'm feeling very good about, I think. But stuff that's to do with characters and dialogue, kind of like a Saturday morning kids TV, that kind of mood. Like, it's kind of anime, but it's also just, I don't know, like telling me the guards are corrupt at the beginning of the story. Is there a more interesting way of just showing that to the player? Or it feels like a story being told to a sort of 8 or 9 year old so far. But the mood of this is great. You know, the art style and the mood and everything, it's kind of like looking at a very early ImSim, like a Thief or a Deus Ex, but then sticking some sort of JRPG pixel art in it. I don't really like getting up close to these guys when they're in pixel art. We'll see it again in a minute. It feels a bit zoomed up pixels up close in first person. Might work okay in a game where you're shooting people with a gun, but when you are getting close enough to melee people... Ooh. Bone trinket. So far we're avoiding guards. Is this actually the black ship? Did I not investigate it thoroughly enough? Something powerful was held in the chest, but it's not there anymore. I'm not skilled enough to pick this lock. Okay, so that's my character thinking to themselves. I think generally speaking, the mix of art styles isn't going to go down well with people. Like, that's a good piece of art. The pixel art that we see in the other parts of the game is good as well, but they're not good together. There's been a lot done here to make this immersive in terms of how it looks and sounds. But I think when I play this sort of game, or a game that's kind of in first person and is trying to immerse me in all these ways, I sort of want this stuff to do something. And so far, the only interactions in the game have been kill a guard, get told I can't open something. But the interactables in this game are just like very specific things. These chests and enemies and nothing else is interactable. And I think if you're going to spend all this time to craft an environment and make it really atmospheric and stuff, if there's nothing in the environment I can really do anything with, then I'm going to bounce off of it pretty quick. Well, I investigated the ship, if that is the ship. Maybe I need to investigate up here. Go up here. Big hand over there. Classic. Hello, mate. Do you need a hand? Need a hand? It's a nice view. Very dark over there. Books that can't be interacted with. So my impression of this game so far, based on the first like 10 minutes, is that the person who made this had a big idea for like a fictional world and a story they wanted to tell in it, and didn't really think so hard about why the player is supposed to care or what they're supposed to enjoy doing. Because at the moment it's like there are very few interactable objects in the game world, and the ones that are interactable are like the big story things that you have to do. I'm leaving and taking some of the guys with me. We can't keep working under these conditions. The smell is worse than 1,000 barrels of rotting fish. The captain can keep hauling those things. We don't want anything to do with this anymore. The captain is hauling something smelly. It's intriguing me about the world, but I haven't seen much so far that makes me think, oh, I'm going to want to play this for hours and hours because of the relatively small amount of things that are interactable. Oh, hello. That made me feel cunning and smart. Sort of feels like it wants to be an imsim like Thief, but there's just not much to do. I lost my bone trinket. Oh, would you like it? Don't know how to give it to you. I mean, I've got your bone trinket. I don't know how to drop it for you. Again, more mixed art styles, you know. We've got this whole interface and the items are not in pixel art, even though our hands are pixel art. You've got to make decisions based on what works together for the end user experience and not just based on what you fancy doing or what is easier for you to do. Either those monsters are consuming all of it or someone's stealing the bait. My money is on Gerald. He just asked me if I have any cheese, and there's cheese right there. That was interesting. Okay. You know, there's lots of different things that a game can be, and things that a game can prioritize, right? You get some games that are more about doing a core gameplay thing over and over again. You get some games that are more about being immersed in a world and a story. This feels like a game that is aiming to make you care about its world and its story. I think that moment we just had with the wizard-looking person that rushed past, that creates some intrigue. That was a good like narrative beat to sort of be introduced to a character and have them rush past and not find out who they are properly. That was quite good. But so far, there's nothing in here that's like making me feel like the game mechanics are something that I'm going to want to do a bunch of times, you know? Some of the dialogue's quite charming, I think. Gave me the key for the records. Seems like a dereliction of duty, but fine, whatever. You know, if my character had really charmed that character, they could have got the key off them, but they just gave us the key because they decided we were a friend. Even though we have no concept of why we need to go in there. We needed to go in there to get this key to go in this room. But okay, we've got a few more things to interact with. This one's fake. This one's got something scribbled on it. The interaction click sort of takes place of your attack when you click on things, which means you can't attack things unless the game wants you to. That's nice.
By the gods, what happened here?
But this is kind of one of those places where the game is going to start feeling tonally off to me, because everything so far, okay, it's supposed to be dark and brooding and everything, but we haven't seen anything that's like inappropriate for a child up until this point. I know there's a corpse here, and it's like, I think you just need to make up your mind about who this is for, because it doesn't feel like it's written for like an adult audience, and then suddenly we get something like that. It's just very inconsistent in terms of how the world works as well. Like, if I kill someone, they just fade away straight away. Yeah, it's sort of presented a bit like a stealth mission, and sort of making sure bodies aren't in bad places and hiding bodies and stuff is such a quintessential thing in stealth games. And I think a lot of this is really a product of trying to build a massive game, right? Because we've seen this as a sequel. People played the first game, looked like it was a big game with a lot of story. But when you aim to do something big like that, you end up sort of cutting corners on the smaller stuff. This game has had so much done for it. It's very hard for me to give actionable feedback, because my feedback for this would be your game needs more interactivity. And if you've already made 20 areas to tell your story in, very hard to go back through them all later and make there be more interactivity. Can I give myself more thieving? Is that enough? Okay. This is the whole world. I just want a local map, really, to find out where I'm going, but you give me a map of the whole world and not a local map. Oh no! Ambushed by guards with special hats on.
Zenray, your skills have not gone unnoticed.
If that's one area of a game with 12 areas, or however many areas there are of that demo hasn't made me want to play 11 more areas like that. Because the only interactions you actually showed me were killing a guard, like zapping a guard with a brain power to make it easier to kill them, interacting with a very limited set of objects in the environment that you wanted me to interact with to tell your story, and there wasn't any point where I was really having to deduce anything or work anything out myself. There is a lot of appealing stuff going on the screen right now. I like the art style of this game. I don't like the mismatch between the pixel art, the low poly 3D art, and these hand-drawn objects, right? I think you need to pick two of those things and get rid of the third one, because it's just too many different things together. I just want more stuff to do. All of the kind of story that you're building up to is not going to get seen by people if your demo is just doing 3 activities. I just need more in a game than that, and this demo doesn't have enough meat to it to convince me to play the rest of the game. And it also hasn't really shown me how all of these parts of the game work. You know, I can see there's an inventory, but we haven't really had a chance to use any items or understand the depth of this system, if there is any, right? Are these things going to get sold? How does this all work? Like, what else is there to buy? You know, showing me that there's an inventory system, but not necessarily showing me items. That's a problem, I think. Seeing as this is already a demo, and you say this is coming out later this year, I think you need to think of what is the appeal of your game supposed to be. Is it supposed to be being a rogue, being a ninja of sorts? In which case you need to go and play games like Thief and Dishonored and incorporate a little bit more of those elements of interactivity in this. Or is it a game about telling your story? If you don't lean hard on your combat and your exploration and make them more interesting and varied and have more kind of interactive parts to them, then people are going to feel really let down by that part of it. They're not going to suffer through uninteresting gameplay just to get to your story, which is as far as I can tell so far, going to be a very kind of tropey standard JRPG type story. So it's better to kind of just pick a few things and do less things. I think there's definitely a good set of ideas here. If this game mainly just wants to be a vehicle for a story, then why make so much game? If it wants to be a stealth game, then it needs to take a few more cues from the last sort of 20 years of stealth games. And what I would have liked to have seen was a prototype of this as a stealth game with more features, more interactivity, and less expecting me to care about a long form story, because I'm not going to experience it, because all there is to do in this game is jump around on barrels. You know? It doesn't make me excited about the game, because the story is going to be sort of a generic fantasy story. I would say, overall, this is the kind of demo that when I see it, I think this should have been an itch demo. And rather than putting out and showing people what you've made and saying, oh, leave me a feedback if there's a bug, right? Which is kind of how that was presented. You should be actually trying to find what people want to do, what people would find fun. Because there's not enough fun stuff in this game yet to make me feel compelled to find out what's in the next area or what's going to happen next in the story or anything like that. And everything I've seen so far about this game sort of indicates that you've made a really, really big, long game, and this demo is just the first part of it. Quality over quantity. And I think this game is very strong in terms of atmosphere, and I think you've done a lot to make players feel things based on how stuff looks and how it sounds. You've set us up as this kind of like sneaky ninja type character, and there's just not enough to do that makes me feel like that character.
Thank you to the patrons. You have enabled this thing to exist. Thank you to the patrons. I put your name on this list. Thank you to the patrons. Your donations show that you can. Thank you to the patrons. We got some more into robots, may you be spared.